Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into something really fascinating, the connection between music and the sacred. How sound elevates us, connects us, maybe even opens a window to the divine.
Exactly. And our mission today is really to explore how music, across literally millennia and countless cultures, has served as this bridge. We'll be looking at everything from, ancient bone flutes right up to modern neuroscience.
It sounds like quite a journey, from those ancient whispers to maybe stadium anthems today, how music becomes this sort of universal chord for humanity.
That's the plan, tracing that thread.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. The dawn of symbolic thought was the earliest hint we have that music was sacred way back then.
Yeah, it's a great place to start. Archaeologists have found these incredible artifacts like primitive flutes carved from bone near cave paintings in places like Lascaux.
Wow, so sound and image together.
Precisely. It suggests they weren't just making art, they were making sound. You have to imagine these firelit cave gatherings, rhythmic drumming maybe echoing in those stone chambers. It would amplify everything, create this really, otherworldly atmosphere.
So not background music, more like a technology.
Definitely not entertainment as we think of it. It was a core tool. Think about shamanic drumming, probably one of our oldest spiritual practices. The drum wasn't just making noise, it was like a vessel, a sonic pathway to the spirit world, maybe inducing trance. It was really fundamental, existential.
Existential, that's a powerful way to put it. Okay, so societies get bigger, more complex. Does music's role change or expand?
It absolutely expands. As civilizations like, say, Mesopotamia rise, you see these huge ziggurats, right, temples.
Yeah.
And Sumerian priests were singing hymns there. To gods like Inanna, Marduk, they used harps, lyres.
So organized religious music.
Yes, and it was essential, not just optional. Same in ancient Egypt. Music was woven right into the state religion. Temples filled with hymns to Amun-Ra, Hathor. They even had specific ritual instruments like the sistrum, that metal rattle thing.
Oh yeah, I've seen pictures of those.
They believed it had purifying powers, maybe protective, helping maintain Ma'at, cosmic order. So you see, music becomes both spiritual and political. It sanctified the rulers, but also connected the whole community to the cosmos.
Interesting. Politics and spirituality intertwined through sound.
Yeah.
What about looking east, India, China? Similar patterns?
Similar, but with their own distinct flavors, In ancient India, take the Rig Veda, one of the oldest sacred texts anywhere. It was preserved through chanting, and the precision of that chanting, the pitch, the rhythm, was considered absolutely vital for its spiritual power.
So the performance itself was key.
Hugely. And mantras like Om, the idea was that repeating it resonated with the fundamental vibration of the universe, Kurda, aligning you with cosmic order.
Okay. And China?
In China, Confucian philosophy saw music differently again, as essential for, moral cultivation, social harmony. There was this formal ritual music, yaoyu, meant to align society with the mandate of heaven to instill virtue. Confucius himself said music could literally transform people.
Transform individuals, align society.
Yeah.
It's amazing how central it was. What about the ancient Greeks? They were big on philosophy, weren't they? Do they have one view or?
The Greeks added a whole philosophical layer, yeah. But definitely not just one view. You had Pythagoras, the mathematician, right? He found that musical intervals matched mathematical ratios.
Ah, the music of the spheres.
Exactly, this idea of a hidden cosmic harmony. For Pythagoreans, music was about understanding the universe's divine structure, order, wisdom.
Okay, very intellectual.
But then you had the complete opposite, the Dionysian cults. Wild rhythms, ecstatic dancing, intoxication, all aimed at achieving divine mania. So it shows this dual nature, right? Music as order, music as ecstatic release.
That's fascinating. Order versus release. It really suggests music itself isn't inherently good or bad spiritually, maybe. It's more about the intent behind it.
I think that's a really crucial point. Intent shapes the experience enormously.
So how did the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, grapple with this powerful tool?
They all incorporated music deeply, but often, with careful thought about its use. In Judaism, you have cantillation, the melodic chanting of the Torah. It adds this sacred layer to the text. And the Psalms, of course, often set to music, bridging personal feeling and communal worship.
Right. And Christianity?
Well, Gregorian chant is iconic. Developed in monasteries, those simple unison melodies were really designed for deep contemplation, focusing the mind on prayer. Later, that evolved into incredibly complex polyphony, but the contemplative root is there.
And Islam. I know views can vary.
They do, but Quranic recitation is considered a high art form. Its melodic quality isn't seen as music in the entertainment sense, but as emphasizing the divine origin of the text. And then you have Sufi traditions, where practices like Qawwali use music very explicitly to reach states of spiritual ecstasy.
So across the board, a conduit to the divine, but often with some guardrails, some sense of balance.
Exactly, a balance between inspiration and restraint.
This ancient legacy is clearly still with us.
Yeah.
How does it echo in, say, modern spiritual music today?
Oh, it's everywhere. Think about the New Age movement in the 20th century, blending Eastern mantras, maybe some shamanic drumming rhythms, Western classical sounds, all for meditation. It's that same human yearning.
Yeah.
And globalization has just mixed everything up even more, hasn't it? You get Tibetan chants with Western choirs, African spiritual rhythms popping up in contemporary Christian worship. These fusions show how adaptable that ancient impulse is. It keeps evolving, but the core idea, connecting to something larger through sound, remains.
It really does. Okay, so if that ancient power is clear, let's get into the how. What makes music work on us like this? And you mentioned something simple but key. Repetition. Why is just repeating something so powerful?
Yeah, it seems almost too simple, doesn't it? But a lot comes down to our brains and bodies. Neuroscientists find that repetitive sounds, like chanting or steady rhythms, can actually change our brainwave patterns, shift us towards meditative states, even trance-like states sometimes.
How does that work?
Well, as the sound repeats, that constant internal chatter, the voice in your head planning or worrying, it tends to quiet down. It makes space for focus, reduces anxiety. It's like the rhythm smooths out the mental bumps, lets you tune in deeper.
And it's not just in the head, is it? There's a physical thing happening, too.
Absolutely. When people chant or sing together, their bodies start to sync up. Breathing patterns can align, even heart rates. This physical entrainment, as it's called, creates this powerful sense of shared experience. People literally feel in sync.
Like a collective heartbeat.
Kind of, yeah. Repetition sort of bypasses our usual thinking filters and taps into this deeper shared resonance. It really can transform the mundane.
Buddhist traditions seem like masters of this. Can you give us some examples?
Oh, definitely. Om Mani Padme Hum is probably the most famous mantra in Tibetan Buddhism. Each syllable has a meaning related to the path to enlightenment, purifying negativity. You hear it constantly in monasteries, often with the spinning of prayer wheels, another form of repetition.
Right.
And then there are more intense practices like Tummo meditation. It combines chanting with specific breathing techniques and visualization to, believe it or not, generate internal heat. Monks can literally sit in freezing temperatures. It shows how deep these mantra techniques can go physically.
That is genuinely mind-blowing. And Hindu traditions are also full of chanting, right?
Immensely so. Kirtans and bhajans are central. They're very, active devotional singing. Kirtan often has this call and response structure. A leader sings divine names, Ram, Krishna, and the group responds.
So everyone participates.
Exactly. The repetition is meant to purify the mind, spark devotion, what they call bhakti. And often the tempo builds and builds. People start swaying, clapping, dancing, reaching the state of communal euphoria. Devotees might call it divine intoxication.
In the Christian tradition, we mentioned Gregorian chant, but there are other forms too.
Yes. Gregorian chant, with its unison voices and lack of instruments, really aimed for that meditative stillness, humility. But think about a modern example like the Taizé community in France. They use these short, simple, repeated musical phrases, often sung in many languages at once.
Oh, I've heard of Taizé. Very calming.
It creates this amazing atmosphere of quiet introspection, but also unity. It shows how that principle of repetition still works powerfully today, even across different Christian backgrounds.
It really sounds like the group aspect is crucial.
Yeah.
Does this repetition lead to something like group flow?
That's a perfect way to put it. Group flow. Psychologists talk about flow, that state of being completely absorbed, losing track of time, right?
Yeah, totally focused.
Communal chanting can absolutely induce that. Individual egos seem to merge into this shared energy. Choirs sometimes describe it as breathing together, as one entity.
Wow.
And there's a healing aspect too. Group singing or chanting is used therapeutically. It can help manage anxiety, trauma, creating a safe, predictable sonic space for emotional release. Sufi dhikr gatherings, where they repeat names of God, also emphasize this heart-cleansing, healing dimension.
So this isn't just confined to religious settings, then. We see similar things happening elsewhere.
Oh, definitely. Think about community drum circles you might see in a park. The repetitive rhythm, maybe some simple chants. It creates this sense of connection, what some might call a kind of secular spirituality. It breaks down social barriers.
Or even in, like, a yoga class.
Exactly. Chanting Om at the beginning or end of yoga class, using simple Sanskrit mantras, or sound baths using gongs, crystal bowls. Those immersive sounds definitely echo ancient trance techniques. It shows this universal human need for connection through sound keeps finding new forms.
That's a great point. But okay, not all spiritual music is just simple repetition. Things got more complex. Let's talk about devotional genres, music with melodies, instruments, the whole package. Where's a good place to start with that?
Gospel music is a fantastic example. Its roots are in the spirituals sung by enslaved Africans, and it blossomed in Black churches in America. It's this powerful mix of biblical stories, incredibly fervent vocals, complex rhythms, and that classic call and response.
Very interactive.
Hugely. It mirrors the communal worship style. And you have these iconic voices, Mahalia Jackson, Aretha Franklin, who could just channel this raw emotion. People talk about feeling the Holy Spirit move through the music. It could bring tears, shouts, dancing, pure embodied faith.
You can really feel that power even just listening to recordings. Okay, shifting continents. Qawwali in South Asia. Many people have heard the name, maybe Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, but what's it really about?
Qawwali is deep. It's central to Sufi Islam. It's this blend of mystical poetry, intense music, and spiritual devotion. The key idea is sama listening as a spiritual practice, a way to connect with the divine.
Listening is practice.
Interesting. Performances use harmoniums, tablas, hand claps, and these incredibly powerful, soaring vocals. The lyrics often praise Allah, the Prophet, Sufi saints. A single piece might go for 15, 20, even 30 minutes, building and building in intensity.
To induce a specific state.
Exactly, to induce a spiritual climax, a state of ecstasy or deep connection. For Sufis, it's a sacred act. Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, as you mentioned, brought it to the world stage, showing its power could cross cultural boundaries.
India has so many devotional traditions. Beyond the curtains we mentioned, what else is prominent?
Well, the Bhakti movement, focused on personal love for deities like Krishna or Rama, inspired all sorts of musical forms. Bhajans, abhangas, often using poetry from saints like Mirabai. Very personal, very heartfelt.
And Sikh traditions.
In Sikh temples, the Gurdwaras, you have kirtan, singing verses from their sacred text, the Guru Granth Sahib. But it's sung in specific ragas, these complex melodic modes, usually with harmonium and tabla. The focus is meditating on the divine name, Nam, and it's very communal, often linked with Langar, the free community kitchen, emphasizing equality.
It's incredible, the sheer diversity. How does this devotional spirit show up in more contemporary, global music styles?
It keeps evolving. Take reggae. It's deeply rooted in Rastafarian beliefs in Jamaica. It blends biblical themes, Afrocentric spirituality. Artists like Bob Marley weren't just making pop songs, they were singing about justice, liberation, unity. Think redemption song, One Love. That's devotional in a way.
Yeah, definitely a spiritual layer there.
Or look at contemporary Christian music, CCM. Huge in evangelical circles. It takes rock or pop structures and pairs them with praise lyrics. Bands like Hillsong fill arenas. It connects with younger generations, though it often sparks debate, about being too commercial versus spiritually authentic.
That debate again. So across all these genres, gospel, qawwali, reggae, CCM, what's the secret sauce? What gives them that emotional kick? Is it just the sound?
The sound is huge, obviously. But the lyrics are critical too. Unlike purely instrumental music, these songs carry sacred stories, moral teachings, direct prayers, or praise. They evoke specific feelings, hope, awe, repentance, gratitude. They reinforce the group's beliefs and identity.
And that call and response thing seems common too.
Very common. It pulls the audience right in. You're not just passively listening, you're actively participating, co-creating the energy, the worship experience. It fosters that deep sense of community.
But as you hinted, even with all this unifying power, devotional music can be controversial within faith groups.
Yeah.
What kinds of issues come up?
Oh yeah. Sometimes religious authorities worry a style is too worldly, too much like secular entertainment, maybe distracting from solemn worship. In Islam, for instance, there have always been discussions about whether instruments are appropriate in sacred settings, with some preferring voices only. And then there's the commercialization angle. When devotional music gets popular, hits the charts, some traditionalists worry the sacred message gets watered down for profit. Accusations of selling out aren't uncommon. It's a constant tension between staying pure and adapting to the culture.
That tension seems universal. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked sacred context. But what about those big gatherings where people feel something like spirituality, but without any explicit religion? Mega festivals, concerts.
Right. Think back to Woodstock in '69. It wasn't just 3 days of music. It became this symbol of peace, love, a kind of countercultural spirituality. People felt this incredible sense of oneness.
A temporary tribe.
Exactly. And modern festivals, even though they're often huge commercial operations now, they still tap into that desire for connection, for something more than just watching bands. They create a temporary alternative world.
And EDM raves seem to push that even further, right? The whole trance aspect.
EDM raves really focus on that. The music is designed for it, those repetitive beats, the build-ups, the drops. It's hypnotic. It guides people into these altered states, sometimes feeling like they're outside their bodies.
Mass trance.
Some people describe it that way, yeah. The combination of sound, lights, the sheer number of people moving together, it can feel intensely communal, almost like religious ecstasy for some. And that PLUR ethos, peace, love, unity, respect, that's like their code, fostering fellowship. Rituals like trading Kandi bracelets reinforce that.
It's not just raves either. Think about a massive rock concert. Thousands of people singing the same anthem.
Oh, yeah.
The moment when everyone sings along. It's powerful.
It really is. Strangers connect, emotions run high, individual boundaries seem to dissolve for a moment into this huge collective voice. And the artists themselves, people like Bruce Springsteen or Beyonce, they can take on this almost shamanic role, guiding the crowd's energy, leading this shared emotional journey. Fans often describe those experiences as genuinely spiritual or transformative.
So what's going on there? If it's not theology, what makes these secular events feel spiritual?
Well, they often have elements that mimic religious rituals, even unintentionally. Opening ceremonies, the pilgrimage to the main stage, collective actions like everyone holding up phone lights.
The lights, yeah.
The sociologist Emil Durkheim called it collective effervescence. When a group gets together and does something synchronized, chanting, dancing, singing, it creates this intense shared energy, this emotional high. People feel connected, renewed, part of something bigger than themselves. Secular gatherings absolutely tap into that.
But these events aren't perfect utopias, are they? There's criticism too. Commercialism, maybe substance use.
Definitely. That's the other side. Mega festivals are big business, high prices, VIP areas, endless merchandise. Critics say it commodifies that desire for connection, turns spirituality into a product.
Yeah, the $20 water bottle.
Exactly. And EDM raves especially face scrutiny over drug use. While some see it as enhancing the experience, there are real dangers, overdoses, health risks, the question of whether it's genuine connection or just chemical escapism.
Though there are downsides. But people also talk about finding healing, finding community.
For sure. Many festivals now really emphasize creating safe spaces. They have policies on consent, mental health support tents, initiatives promoting respect and inclusivity. For people who feel marginalized or lonely in everyday life, these events can offer a powerful, if temporary, sense of belonging in a joyful, accepting crowd.
A place to just be.
And they celebrate creativity, art, expression. It can be genuinely inspiring, maybe fostering a more compassionate outlook to take back home. For many, it really is a kind of modern ritual of renewal.
It's fascinating how humans consistently seek out these kinds of experiences, sacred or secular. Okay, let's get into the brain. What's actually happening neurologically during these profound musical moments?
Right. The neuroscience is amazing. It's not just abstract feeling. Things are firing. When music gives you chills or makes you well up, your brain's emotion hub, the limbic system, especially the amygdala and hippocampus, is lighting up. These are ancient parts of the brain tied to feeling and memory.
So that's the emotional core. What about the pleasure, the euphoria?
That's dopamine. Your brain's reward pathway involving areas like the striatum releases dopamine. It's the same chemical involved in pleasure, from food, sex, social connection. Music taps right into that fundamental reward system, which is why it feels so good, almost addictive sometimes.
Makes sense. But spiritual experiences often involve more than just raw emotion, right? Like focus or feeling really present, or even losing your sense of self.
Good point. The prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain, is involved too. It helps us track the music, anticipate what's coming next, creating that satisfying tension and release. But interestingly, during deep musical immersion, parts of the prefrontal cortex associated with self-focused thought, that constant inner monologue about me, myself, and I, they can actually quiet down.
So you kind of get out of your own head.
Exactly. It creates space for a wider sense of awareness, feeling connected to the music, the environment, other people. It helps explain that feeling of presence.
And music's power isn't just individual. It syncs people up. How does the brain handle that?
This is super interesting. Studies using EEG, brainwave measurement, show that when people drum or chant together, their brainwave patterns can literally start to synchronize. They fall into a shared neural rhythm.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, it helps explain that feeling of collective euphoria, that sense of unity in a crowd. Your brains are actually, in a way, marching to the same beat.
That's incredible. And can we sort of catch emotions from others through music? If a performer is really feeling it.
Yes, through mirror neurons. These brain cells fire both when we perform an action and when we see someone else perform it. When you watch a musician pour their heart out or see others around you deeply moved, your mirror neurons activate, partially simulating their emotional state in your own brain.
So empathy gets amplified.
Exactly. It intensifies the whole communal experience, creating this feedback loop of shared emotion. It's a biological basis for that feeling of being connected.
Okay, so synchronization, empathy. What about those really deep, altered states? Trance-like feelings.
Brain scans during deep chanting or meditative music often show an increase in certain brain waves. Theta waves, linked to deep relaxation and creativity, and alpha waves, associated with calm, wakeful rest. It's like the brain shifts gears out of its busy, everyday mode into something more receptive, more open.
Reducing stress, opening up possibilities.
Yeah, creating the conditions where insights or feelings of transcendence might occur.
And that feeling of ego dissolution, losing your sense of self, becoming one with everything.
Well,
is there a brain signature for that too?
There seems to be. Research suggests that the default mode network, or DMN, a network of brain regions active when we're mind-wandering or thinking about ourselves, often becomes less active during deep meditative states, psychedelic experiences, and yes, profound musical moments.
So the me network quiets down.
Kind of, and suppressing the DMN seems correlated with those feelings of unity, boundlessness, transcendence. It's like the neurological walls of the self become more permeable.
Amazing. And what about the specific chemicals? We mentioned dopamine. Any others?
Dopamine is huge, especially for that pleasure peak, the frisson or chills. That often feels like a moment of grace in a spiritual context. But oxytocin is really important too.
The bonding hormone.
That's the one. Studies show oxytocin levels can rise during group singing or chanting. It fosters feelings of trust, empathy, closeness, like you feel with close friends or family. It helps explain why singing together in choirs or chanting at a curtain or even singing along at a concert builds such strong social bonds. Music literally uses our neurochemistry to connect us.
It's just incredible how deep this goes. But it's true that not everyone gets chills from the same song, right? People react differently.
Absolutely. Personality plays a role. People higher in openness to experience, for example, tend to report stronger emotional responses. Suggestibility might factor in too.
And your background.
Hugely important. Cultural conditioning is key. If you grew up with gospel music, it's likely hardwired into your emotional and memory circuits in a way it wouldn't be for someone else. Familiarity primes the brain's reward system. What feels sacred or moving is deeply influenced by what you know and value.
Understanding all this brain science opens up possibilities for healing, doesn't it? But also maybe ethical questions.
Definitely. Music therapy is a growing field, using music's effects on mood, memory, and emotion to help with depression, anxiety, PTSD, even dementia. It can be incredibly powerful, sometimes providing comfort or connection that feels spiritual.
But the flip side.
The flip side is acknowledging music's power to influence and potentially manipulate. We know music is used in advertising to sway emotions. There are historical examples and even contemporary concerns about how rhythmic chanting or anthems at political rallies could be used to bypass critical thinking and promote groupthink or fervor. Knowing how music works on the brain means we need to be mindful of how that knowledge is used.
Which leads us right into a really core question, maybe the biggest one. Are these transcendent states we feel through music genuinely spiritual? Real connections to something beyond? Or are they just elaborate tricks our biology plays on us?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The skeptical view, often coming from a more reductionist perspective, would say it's primarily biological. Music triggers evolved reward circuits, dopamine, oxytocin that originally helped bond groups for survival.
So the feeling is real, but the interpretation is questionable.
From that view, yes. The intense communal euphoria feels profound, so we label it spiritual or divine, but it might just be a particularly strong activation of natural brain processes, an illusory connection where we mistake emotional intensity for actual mystical insight.
Okay, but millions of people, for millennia, have felt these experiences are authentic encounters with the sacred. What's the counter-argument?
Well, from what you might call an embodied spirituality perspective, many faith traditions believe the divine works through the natural world, including our bodies. So those physical responses, the chills, the tears, the feeling of expansion, aren't tricks hiding the divine, they're potential signs of its presence. Tangible evidence of grace or connection to cosmic truth.
The body isn't an obstacle, it's a receiver.
Exactly. And proponents also point to the effects. If these experiences lead to lasting positive changes, greater compassion, a renewed sense of purpose, maybe even radical shifts in how someone lives their life, doesn't that suggest something more profound than just a temporary chemical high?
Which brings to mind the philosopher William James. He had a pragmatic take on this, didn't he? About subjective experiences.
He did. James basically said, judge it by its fruits. If an experience, religious or otherwise, leads to positive consequences, better ethics, more compassion, personal growth, then it's real in the sense that it works, it has tangible effects in the person's life. Its metaphysical origin is almost secondary to its practical value.
So if it makes you a better person, it's real enough.
That's one way to look at it. Others might emphasize the symbolic power. Music expresses these deep, universal human longings for connection, meaning healing. Whether there's a literal deity involved or not, the music taps into something fundamentally true about the human condition, and that shared experience is authentic and valuable.
This also loops back to that commercialization issue. Can you have an authentic spiritual experience listening to, say, mass-produced spiritual background music or worship music designed to top charts? Critics sometimes call it factory worship.
It's a really tricky area. The critique is that formulaic music designed for market appeal might lack the depth or sincerity of traditional forms. It risks turning sacred experience into just another consumer product. Enlightenment light.
But can it still work for people?
I think the consensus is often that intent and context matter more than the origin of the music itself. If a listener approaches even a commercially produced song with genuine openness and devotion, and if they're in a supportive communal setting, they can absolutely have an authentic experience. The spark often happens in the listener, not just in the sound waves.
So sincerity can overcome commercialism, sometimes. What about the issue of cultural appropriation? That comes up a lot, especially with Westerners borrowing sacred music or chants from other traditions.
A huge and sensitive topic. When, say, a Western yoga studio uses Sanskrit mantras without understanding their context, or a festival offers shamanic drumming workshops led by someone with no connection to indigenous traditions. Critics argue it strips these practices of their deep cultural and spiritual meaning. It becomes superficial, potentially disrespectful.
Turning sacred practices into trends.
Exactly. But then there's the hope for respectful fusion. Can cultures share and learn from each other's spiritual technologies in a way that's collaborative, gives proper credit, maybe even offers fair compensation? If done thoughtfully, some argue it can broaden understanding and empathy. It's a fine line to walk, demanding real care and integrity.
It really is. So ultimately, is there any way to tell if a music-induced high is genuinely transformative or just a good feeling? Is there a litmus test?
Maybe the Beck litmus test is lasting change. Does the experience lead to tangible shifts in behavior? More compassion, a stronger sense of purpose, ethical clarity? Or was it just a fleeting emotional buzz that faded by Monday morning?
Integration is key.
Absolutely. That's why many traditions emphasize follow-up practices. Journaling about the experience, prayer, meditation, acts of service, ways to integrate the insights or feelings from that peak musical moment into the fabric of daily life. That's what anchors transcendence and turns it into genuine transformation rather than just spiritual tourism.
Wow. What an incredible journey we've taken. From ancient caves to modern raves, exploring the science in our brains and the enduring questions of the spirit, music really does seem to be this universal chord.
It absolutely does. And across all that diversity, the different cultures, genres, beliefs, we see these recurring themes, don't we? Community, repetition, that build towards release or connection, it speaks to something incredibly deep in us.
And it's constantly evolving.
Constantly. Modernity brings global fusion, wider access, but maybe also challenges to maintain depth. Yet the core impulse remains. And the impacts are undeniable: personal healing, social bonding, even fuel for activism.
It's a powerful force.
It is. And even with all the neuroscience, all the anthropology, there's still a mystery to it, isn't there? Science illuminates so much, but the essence of why music touches us so profoundly, it still feels a bit elusive, right there at the edge of knowledge and maybe grace. It keeps inspiring wonder.
That's beautifully put. Perhaps the final thought for everyone listening is this: wherever humans gather, it seems, a melody arises to reach for the sacred. And in that ongoing, ever-evolving symphony, we can hear the heartbeats of generations, a true testament to music's enduring power to connect us, to heal us, and perhaps to elevate us all.